taking one small step instead of looking at the mountain. I'm taking one small step, it gets me closer to my goal. I'm taking one small step instead of looking, just sitting there looking at the mountain.
A little over a year ago today, I stood on the platform at New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living on South Parker Road. And I talked to everyone who was present about getting outside of the box, about the need to move away from the boundaries and the restrictions and the constraints of the average type of church service and becoming more expansive. And then I began talking about going global. And then the entire world changed. And we moved into a time of social distancing, and for many it became a time of isolation and separation. And people walked out of their businesses and they shut the doors and they locked them, not knowing when they would be able to return. And now here we are, all this time later, and we are turning a corner. And this corner is taking us from the place where we have been to an entirely new experience. And the new experience is what we are choosing to create. And I like to call it a wild new normal. Because many of us are yearning for normal. And the truth is that we have discovered this past year is there really is no such thing. Normal is an illusion. There's habit and there's tradition and there's ritual and there's things that we do over and over again. And we claim those, but it's not really normal. And so the question I have today is, what do you want to experience as we move forward? What do you want to create in your life? What do you want to bring in and what do you want to let go of? I've mentioned before that I have been visioning for weeks, and the ideas that are coming to me are phenomenal. And I don't have to worry about the how, because we all know that Spirit is in charge of the how. We just get to be creative and we get to plan. And our leadership council has been visioning, and we are looking to the next step for New Dawn. We are looking to the next idea. We have begun a program of fundraising for the Let's Get Together campaign, so that when we do have an opportunity to have a place to get together again, we have the ability to bring in musicians and have a celebration, if you will. And it may still require some social distancing. We may still be required to wear masks. We still get to be safe. But we get to create something new, and we get to bring it all together for the future, for that next step, for the next idea. And I'm really excited, and what I ask of you is to get excited with me and to consider what you can do and what ideas are coming to you and providing us with those ideas. Because the Leadership Council and myself and some of the team members at New Dawn are coming up with a lot of stuff, but I know that there's someone watching this right now who has a creative idea that we haven't thought of that could possibly support us in that new, wild, new normal concept. And so let's start down this path together. Let's begin to create something brand new, something beautiful, something expansive, something so outside of the box that it will just enrich our lives, and we will be excited to be a participant of it. And in the meantime, we can stay connected. We can stay connected through these videos. We can stay connected through our Sunday Hug Line online every Sunday at 11. And I know, I've heard the stories, many of you just don't care for Zoom, and I didn't either. But at least when we get together on a Zoom call, we can see each other's faces, we can hear each other's voices, and we can share ideas. So we have the Hug Line on Sundays, and coming up this month on April 15th, I will be facilitating a class on the abundance of prosperity. It's a 3-week class, and I invite you to join me with that and continue to allow ideas to percolate and continue to consider what the wild new normal looks like for you. Please join me. Please pray with me. Let's just all take a deep collective breath and breathing in that energy and that space and that wellness and that well-being of the moment. And then releasing that and just being fully present right here, right now. And in this place where we are, we know. We know there is a power, there is a beauty, an energy, a light that encompasses all things. We call it God. And God is always present, and God is with us right here in this space right now, because we are connected to Source, in Source. And what we know for us today, that we are blessed, that Spirit is present in all of our activities and all of our affairs, and that this day is blessed by God. And for this we give thanks. We give thanks for this moment. We give thanks for this day. We give thanks for the beauty around us. And so let us just be at peace with that and turn our attention to this time, the now moment, letting go of everything else. And so we do that, just letting it go, letting it be. And so it is. In the month of March, we talked a lot, well, I talked a lot about visioning, about taking our mindset and expanding to what is the best and the highest for each of us. And this month we are looking at a theme of stepping into the unknown. And what Ernest Holmes taught us was that everything, every next moment, every next day is unknown to us. We think we know what's going to happen. We believe we have a plan, but that's not necessarily the truth. And so today, my talk title is on the path less traveled. And as I look at this, I want to remind us and to honor the moment in time that this day represents for so many. It's Easter. And Easter is such a significant time frame for so many of us. And it is being celebrated by people everywhere. And a lot of the celebrations and the traditions have to do with the stories that come from the Bible of Jesus, the master teacher. And one of the things that he taught us, and that many of the great leaders have taught us, is that all of the good works that he was able to do, each one of us can do. That it wasn't just limited to him, that he wasn't necessarily unique, he was just connected, and he was just aware of his position and what he could do and how he could do it. And so I want to look at that for a few moments today, because Easter is a time that is around the last days and of Jesus on earth, his crucifixion, and then his resurrection. And he knew that his work on planet Earth was complete. He knew that there was a greater outcome coming forth for all people everywhere. The story of his last days is one of judgment, harsh accusations, criticisms, pain, agony, betrayal, and sorrow. And these are the same types of experiences that we have today. So what I want us to look at is just that idea of what these teachings brought us and how they reflect in our world today. In the final moments before Jesus left this earth, he made two very important statements. One of them was, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." And the other one was, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" And I want to talk about both of these and what they mean to us today. And the first one I want to talk about is the my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Because I'm not certain that's what he said. In the translations of the Bible, that's pretty much the phrase that we read everywhere. But in the Aramaic text in the Bible, the translation is different. The words are spelled differently. It's not exactly the same language. And when we look at the translations, we can find a whole new meaning, and it's so valuable to us to pay attention to that. Because in the Aramaic, he said, "It is for this purpose I have come. So instead of being in that place of sorrow and wondering why God put him in this position, he is making a declaration of his life, knowing that he did what he came to do and he accomplished it. I find that so beautiful, and I find it so impactful because I look at my life and I wonder what it would be like as I take my last breaths and I get ready to leave this physical form, to know that whatever the purpose was that I came forth on planet Earth, that I had accomplished it, that I had succeeded, that everything that I had set out to do, I completed, I did it. What would that be like? I think that is so absolutely beautiful. To understand our purpose here, why we were brought into form, what we're here to do. And it doesn't have to be something of huge magnitude. You don't have to weigh it out and make it something more than it is. Just showing up, being yourself, being authentic, and living your purpose every single day. After the crucifixion of Jesus, his body was removed from the cross and placed into a tomb. And many of us know the story, and a huge stone was placed in front of the entranceway. And a short time later, the women in Jesus' life came to adhere to the body, administer to the body, and anoint the body. And the tombstone was moved away, and the tomb was empty. And Jesus was no longer there. Andra Day has a song that I love so much, and it is called Rise Up. And what she says in this song is this: I'll rise up high like the waves. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again. The message for us here is that we can rise up no matter what has happened, no matter what has transpired, no matter how gloomy things are or how downtrodden we might feel. We can rise up and we can continue to do that over and over again. Not only does this story teach us that, but so does the season we are in right now, spring. If you haven't noticed, it's rising up. It is coming back to life. The entire planet is showing renewal. There are buds on the trees. And yes, I know there has been some snow. But you can still see the crocus coming up through the ground and the flowers beginning to show their blooms, and the bushes, and everything is changing. And for many of us, we are becoming excited and we're becoming energetic, and we want to get outside and we want to do more. And we have been dormant for so long. And it is time for us to look at the idea of rising up. In the book of Luke is the verse that I mentioned earlier that Jesus spoke also when he was on the cross. When he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. This is so evident in our world today. We see masses of people, groups of people being involved in things that they don't really know and understand what they're doing. And sometimes it's because we see a group of people and it's easier to follow than to try and take a stand against what's going on or take a stand for what we believe. And it's easier just to kind of follow along. And oftentimes we're caught in that space of not knowing what we're doing. So one of the questions we can ask is, why am I doing this? If I'm involved in something, or if I'm repeating something I've heard someone say, why am I doing that? Is it really my truth? Is it really what I believe? And is it easier for me just to repeat someone else's idea as opposed to considering what my own belief system is? This was an evaluation of the human consciousness at this time. This entire story of the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus. And we have the example of Jesus' love and his compassion for all humanity. And at that moment when he knew his time was done, he expressed a desire for forgiveness. We are reminded, forgiveness is the spiritual practice that purifies the soul. Forgiveness is the key. So this week I invite you to take a look at what are the things in your life that you need to forgive. It could be others. It could be the circumstances, the conditions that have been taking place in your life, the acts that seem to be so filled with hatred, the judgments against us and against others. And oftentimes, it's important to consider forgiveness of self. You see, in the act of forgiveness, we don't condone what has happened. It's not about saying it's okay. It's okay, you didn't really hurt me. It's not about that. It's about saying, I'm releasing this tension, this grip on my heart. I'm letting this go so that I can breathe easy, so that I can lift my head high, so I no longer have to be attached to this idea, this condition, this act, this person that has brought me so much pain. That's what forgiveness is about. It's for each and every one of us. Ernest Holmes says it this way: one of the outstanding things that Jesus taught was the mistakes of yesterday can be canceled, that God's creation is always taking place, and no matter what the experiences of yesterday may have been, they can be changed. When we refuse to forgive, we are attached to an outcome, to a situation, to a condition, to a person, and it stays with us, and it affects us, and it impacts our body, and it impacts our health. But when we are able to let it go and move away from it, we are free. I recently wrote a story for my oldest son. Jeremy never really knew his dad. His dad was killed in a motorcycle accident when Jeremy was 3 years old. And there wasn't a lot of conversation about his father. And I didn't really recognize that until this past Christmas. And so I decided to take myself and go back in time and get myself in the head of that 20-year-old young woman who was married to this man and write a story for my son about his father. I thought my actions were filled with love. Love of my son who never knew his dad, to give him that reflection, to give him that insight of things that he did not know. And what I discovered was that story brought to me an expression and experience of time that I had just closed the door and tried to ignore all these years. And that I had not realized there were things that I had done that I may need to forgive, and there were actions that took place back then that I needed to forgive, and there was grief, huge, tremendous grief that I got to work through. And so my beautiful act of love turned out to not only be an expression of love for my son, but an expression of love for myself. Because what I was able to do was to take time to really put some energy in to letting go of the things that I did, of the decisions that I made as a 20-year-old kid who probably just didn't know any better. I have a quote from Anonymous that says this: "Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it." We need to be easy on ourselves. We need to be gentle with ourselves. We need to demonstrate some kindness and compassion with ourselves. I think we're too harsh. We're too hard on ourselves. We judge ourselves and our actions, and we have an expectation that we know better. And to look back at a time when I didn't know better, I just knew what I knew, was an amazing process for me. So I encourage you to take this idea of forgiveness, to take this concept of rising up and apply this into your life and activities this week, and know full well that we have the ability and the opportunity to forgive all that has transpired and to rise up and have a new expression and to choose a new path. Please pray with me. And so right here and right now, I absolutely know the truth. And I know that the truth is that there is a power greater than anything we have imagined, and it is here with us now. It holds us, it guides us, it comforts us. And when we listen, it speaks to us. And this power, this presence, this truth is God. And it's in all things, and we are connected to it, in it, as it. And in this connection, we are connected one to another. We are a full body, complete of all humankind. And it's beautiful, and it's perfect, and it's blessed. And so right here, right now, today, what I know on this special day, this Easter Sunday, all people everywhere are blessed. All are guided and guarded and directed by God, in God. All of us have the ability to love one another, to hold one another in that place of sacredness, and to forgive acts that we did not understand. And so we take this with us throughout this week, and we allow it to flourish, and we allow this to become into our practices. And we know that we are blessed, and we know that it is good, and we know that all of life is unfolding in absolute perfection. And so we just let it go. We let it go, and I turn it over to the mind of God, knowing that this is where it is coming forth, and this is how it is unfolding for each and every one of us. And it's perfect, and it's good. And by God, it is already done. I let it go. I let it be. And so it is.
I'm taking one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Taking one small step gets me closer to my goal. I'm taking one small